I have time to start. All right, on page 71 in your book, I remember that I asked you about 6 cities. Kadesh, Shechem, Hebron, Golan, Ramoth Gilead, and Bezer. You know what the importance of those cities are?
The cities of refuge.
That's right. Very good. Cities of refuge. Now, when you think about the cities of refuge, too, you ought to do a little study on that. And they are on a hill.
What?
On a hill or a cliff. They are higher points. And that is involved with the name, in their name, too. Also, while we're here on this map, on page 71, you see the cities of Ashdod, Ashkelon, Gaza, Eglon, and Gath. Over by the Mediterranean seas in the, this would be Judah and Simeon down in that area. You see them? 5 cities. All right, that's going to be where the Philistines are. We'll talk some more about those in just a minute. But okay. Now let's go back to page 66 for a minute. Start class. Yes, ma'am.
The Gaza was part of that too. Gaza. I know they say Gaza.
Yes.
Gaza.
Yes.
Okay, Ashkelon, Ashdod.
Those 3 are right there, and then you have the 2 more there.
So not Javneel
No.
and not Joppa.
No. If you'll find a map, I think one of the maps has that.
The Philistines.
Yeah.
Philistines.
Okay. All right. On page 66, right underneath the italicized, well, not italicized, but the small print right there. Of course, that's Joshua 1, verses 1 through 9. Interesting things that take place in that passage about be strong and of good courage. But notice Moses listed 7 nations or tribes that Israel would find living in the land of Canaan: the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. This is from Deuteronomy 7, verse 1. Good way to remember that. There are 7 nations they are to drive out, and that is in Deuteronomy chapter 7. So 7 and 7. You got that down. Okay. Now, I'll give you this, and I won't charge you extra for this, but the 10 Commandments are found where?
Exodus 20. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, Exodus chapter 20, and
Verses 1 through 8. 9.
Somewhere through there,
Somewhere in
but
that neighborhood.
just get to Exodus chapter 20. And then also, where else are they found?
Deuteronomy 10.
Close. Deuteronomy chapter 5.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So you had 10 commandments. Okay. Exodus chapter 20, then divide, you got that there. Divide that by 2, and you got Deuteronomy chapter 5. Good way to remember that. And then in Deuteronomy chapter 6, God is one. There's a song that the young people sing.
You said Deuteronomy 6.
Yeah. All right. There are also going on there in that paragraph. In addition to these, there are also the tribes of the giants called the Anakim, Rephaims, and these other ones. The Anakims are the ones that we're going to be more interested in there. And this would be, we'll study this in just a little bit probably, is also where Goliath came from, was from this group. Now, Goliath was what group of people? All right, so he's going to be from that area that we talked about, and we showed you on the map there. Those in that area. Okay, so this is some of the background that we're talking about. Then in the next paragraph, this is all these tribes descended from Ham.
Say what?
The next paragraph, all these tribes were descendants of Ham through his son Canaan. All right, then the next one also, it says the name Canaanite. Are you up with me? The name Canaanite is used most frequently in a collective sense to include all these tribes.
Now, these are 7 tribes? you're
Yes,
talking about?
all of
Okay.
these folks. Yep. And even those other ones up there, those giants that were up in that paragraph before, all of these, Canaanites is a real general name. Okay, and we talk about the land of Canaan, so it would include anybody that would, Canaanite was anybody that dwelt in the promised land before the children of Israel did. Okay. Now drop down to the second from the last on page, we're still on page 66. You're- The second from the bottom up there, giants were in the land before Abraham's days.
Mhm.
Okay, the spies of Moses' days were terrified when they saw them. You remember in Numbers chapter 13, verses 26 through 33, we are but grasshoppers.
The 40 go out, but only the 2 said they can do it, which Joshua could.
Right, that's correct. Okay,
And that's the reason it had spent 40 years in the wilderness.
because they went out 40 days.
Right, 40 days.
Yep.
There was 12.
12 of them, yeah, 12 spies, one from each tribe. All right. Then Moses told the Israelites God would help them drive out the giants from their land and the inheritance, because he had already helped the Moabites and the Ammonites drive out those living in their lands. Okay. So here's the Israelites killed Og and took his territory, and he had a bedstead iron of 13 feet long and 6 feet wide. So, all right. Then, yep. That's called a king size bed, by the way.
More ways than one.
All right. Then the giants are called the sons of Anak. Okay. And we talked about them then, Anakims. Okay. All right. Over on the next page, then on page 67, the first paragraph, Joshua sent spies across the Jordan to the city of Jericho. When the Israelites were still camped in the plains of Moab, it is evident that God intended. Let's see, that's all I wanted to know there. Okay. Let's see, under where it says continue to move using map 6 for this lesson, drop down to 1, 2, 3. Let's see. Yeah, the third. God gave this first city into their hands miraculously. Remember, they marched around the city 7 days until the walls fell flat, and each soldier could walk straight before him to destroy the inhabitants. All right, the fortress part of the city was covered about 7 acres. Who was then the only one that was saved out of that city?
Rahab.
All right. What else do you know about Rahab?
She was in the lineage of Christ.
That's right. Okay.
She married.
Into Judah. That's all we know. Married into the tribe of Judah.
All
She
right.
had to have been the lineage of Christ.
All
She was a
right.
harlot, but she obviously gave it up.
All right. She did give that occupation up and
And she also put out she hid the spies.
had
And
spies.
she had the silver, different versions have cord,
Yes.
string,
Right.
ribbon, that sort of thing hanging out.
Well, she
on the
let
window to let her know where she lived.
those spies out of that window with that cord, that ribbon
Yeah.
or whatever. Now you got to understand what your definition of ribbon or cord is. If you're gonna let somebody down through the window through that thing, it's got to be
A different size rope.
as right.
But it's something when you say scarlet cord, and there's a cord that runs from Genesis to Revelation.
Oh, very good, very good. Scarlet cord that runs from Genesis to Revelation. I appreciate that. Genesis chapter 3, verse 15 goes all the way through the book of Revelation. All right, the next paragraph, the entire city with all its spoil was burned as a first fruit sacrifice. And they'd already taken Transjordan Plateau. That's talking about where the 2.5 tribes took their inheritance. Did we talk about that?
Let me see.
Uh,
Right there.
The entire.
go to the maps on page 71 again.
Oh, the map on page 78 shows the Philistine
Philistines.
area.
Yeah, I figured that. All right, notice up there we have on the east side of the Jordan, we have Manasseh. Then we have Gad and Reuben. This is ways this will be, and here he's referred to this as the Transjordan. If you go back to when we talked about the mountains that ran down, one on one side and one on the other side of the Jordan River, we're talking about the Transjordan here, but this is on the other side. The Bible referred to it many times as the other side of Jordan. And when he refers to the other side of Jordan, that's what he has reference to right here, is this side.
The side with Manasseh.
Manasseh, Gad, and half a tribe of Manasseh, really.
Yeah.
Gad and Reuben. Okay. Now notice you have Moab and Edom. And I've mentioned before this book, that's backwards probably to y'all. But if you want to, this Edom was built out of the rock, and here it was hewn out of this rock. And if you want to look at this sometime tonight, one time you have do it between class. So anyway, it is beautiful pictures. So be good to look at that and get some of the idea of what we're talking about anyway. Hopefully we'll get to some points and talk about that. What page did I get to?
You're on page 67.
All right, very good. All right, so all right, now notice underneath there that this was the city, the entire city was burned as first fruit sacrifice to God. Now they couldn't take any of the spoils of that city. There was somebody who did. One man took the spoils. What was his name?
I thought it was the city of Ai.
That's
That's not the man.
they couldn't take the Ai because this man took.
This man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was his name?
I don't know, but they killed him.
We could play a little Jeopardy music now. See if we can find this.
Okay, his name was Achan.
That's right, Achan. All right, one man's sin caused the whole group of people to suffer. That's a lesson right there. One man's sin can cause a whole group of people to suffer because he took the
Some spoils, it was like the idols, wasn't it?
wedge of,
Large gold, wasn't it?
yeah, Babylonian garment. He took, was it 2 or 3 things there? Gold, silver, and a Babylonian garment. And God said, you're not supposed to have any of that. But when they took Ai, then the city of Ai, then they began to get the spoils of the land. All right. Now I want to notice down a couple of paragraphs from there. It says, now that Jericho, you see where I am? All right, now that Jericho, Ai, and Bethel were destroyed, the Israelites were able to move freely into the central hill country. They made their way to the twin peaks of do you have any idea?
Gerizim
Yes.
and Ebal.
All right. Gerizim and Ebal. Now, if we'll open up our Bibles to Joshua 8 and verse 33, you'll see that, but we need to follow up with some things then. Let's see. And all the Israel and their elders and officers and their judges stood on this side of the ark and on that side before the priests, the Levites, and to bear the ark of the covenant and the Lord, as well as the stranger, as he that was born among them, half of them over against Mount Gerizim, and the other half of them against Mount Ebal. And Moses, the servant of the Lord, had commanded before that they should bless the people of Israel. And afterward he read all the words of the law and the blessings and the cursings according to all that is written in the book of the law. And there was not a word of all that Moses commanded which Joshua read, not before all the congregation of Israel, with the women and the little ones and the strangers that were conversant among them. Okay. Two important mountaintops, Mount Ebal and Mount Gerizim. Okay. And if you'll find them on your map, and I should have done that before. I found them on one map, but I forgot where they were. Okay. Should have been right there. Anyway, if you'll find where Samaria is or Shechem is, on page 71, I believe that's right. They've been a little bit north of there, but it's going to be in that area, in where Manasseh has gotten their inheritance. You see that on the western side of the Jordan River, where Samaria is or Shechem is. Mount Ebal and Mount Gerizim are going to be in there. I thought I had that placed up there on those, and I don't see it right now. But anyway, yes, that's right. Ebal is north and Gerizim is south of Shechem. All right. Found it on Babin. All right, now let's drop down to the next to the last paragraph on page 67. In the middle of that paragraph, you see 10:10, as they fled, God sent a hailstorm that killed more of the enemy than the soldiers had succeeded in killing. Furthermore, the sun stopped, and the way was prolonged so Joshua could kill the men before they could get back inside their walled cities. This is in the valley of where? Ajalon. She's getting mixed up with Ezekiel chapter.
I like the name Valley Driver.
Dude, where did I see the? That's also. Page.
Okay. Yeah. Valley of
Ajalon. And I found it on my maps, and I've forgotten why I shouldn't have. I'm gonna have to start marking my maps.
Yeah. And put your little,
All right, on page 56. No, well, it doesn't give you the valley, but you see Eglon. It's down somewhere right there, one of the cities of the Philistines in that area. Let me see on page 71. Yeah. You can do it also on page 71. I was thinking that I saw.
we're looking for the Valley of Ajalon.
Yeah, there it is. Go up. See where on page 71, you see where Joppa is?
Yeah.
And you see that river that's going
Oh, right.
south?
Ajalon.
Yeah, that's where it's at.
Okay. Out from Joppa.
Yeah, out from Joppa. That's what they're doing. They're taking and they're destroying. So I missed it there a little bit. Let's see if that's got anything. All right. Page 69 then. All right, now I want to notice Joshua chapter 13 and verse 3 as we begin this section, because if you'll notice, he says, the land promise fulfilled. So we're starting then with Joshua 13, and I want to look at verse 3. It says, from Shire, which is before Egypt, and the borders of Akron northward, which is counted to the Canaanites, and the 5 lords of the Philistines. Okay, here's the 5 lords of the Philistines. You need to understand that one. Okay. And these 5 lords then make up the Philistines, this group of people.
Bible where the Philistines make up the group of people?
Yeah, make up the Philistines. When he talks about the Philistines, he's usually, he doesn't get real specific about which group. All right, you remember when the Ark of the Covenant was taken by the Philistines, and it was taken around to the different cities?
Right.
It was then, those were they were more, what is it, feudal lords? City kings.
Yeah.
Okay, more territory you could conquer, then the more you could control. And that's what we're dealing with a lot of times in the Old Testament, even in the book of Genesis, all the way up to what we're talking about now. All right. Let's talk about then, just on page 71, the map there. And I want you to notice this was one of your maps that you were supposed to draw. And notice where Reuben, I hope you all did this when you understood you had the 2.5 tribes on the eastern side of the Jordan River. You have Manasseh, Gad, and Reuben. Okay. And then you have on the other side, you have the other, that would be 9.5 tribes. But Simeon and Judah, Simeon was in part of Judah's inheritance. All right. Now, also, you understand why there is no tribe of Levi listed in the land inheritance. Okay.
They belong to God.
All right.
They only had cities.
All right. They had how many cities?
48.
48 cities. 6 of those were the city of refuge. So 42 plus 6 is 48 cities. And they were given not only the cities, but the land. When I'm talking about the land around those cities, we're talking about a good mile around. I mean, you could put almost a dot where that is and draw a mile around it. And that all land was theirs. So it was not just a little bit that they got, but they got no inheritance. And that's why there. So when we refer to, well, I'll get into that later. All right. I gave you the 6 cities and the 5 cities, then that's pretty much where we're at there. All right, on page 72. All right, you got that dark bold says locate and label all 6 cities of refuge on your map. Let's go to the paragraph before that. Notice Levi is not shown as having a specific territory on a map. God selected that tribe to be his special ministers in the tabernacle worship. The priests were Levites in the specific family of Aaron. The other Levites then helped in other aspects of the tabernacle work. One of their duties was to teach the law. Understand and underline that, or bold it, or whatever you've got there. One of their duties was to teach the law to all the people. Now, if they didn't do their duties, then what happened?
People didn't know the law.
And they would go in then serving other
gods.
That's right. Because one of the 10 commandments we find that God is a jealous God, and thou shalt serve no other God. So, here is their duty. All right. Then after each tribe was given his portion, they were instructed to give cities out of their borders to the Levites. And they were given 48 cities scattered throughout the land. 6 of these 48 were designated as the cities of refuge where one might flee in case of an accidental killing. He was still tried, and he had to stay there until the death of the high priest. These cities were located so that it would be within a day's journey from any portion in the land. Now, when we finish up the book of Joshua, I want to notice some things in that book of Joshua that to me is very important. Let's open our Bible to Joshua 21 and verse 43. And the Lord gave unto Israel all the land which he sware to give to their fathers, and they possessed it and dwelt therein. What does that mean?
The fulfillment of the promise.
What promise? The fulfillment of what promise? I'm just reiterating so they can hear this online, because a lot of times they can't hear it.
The promise of the land promise to Abraham.
All right, the land promised to Abraham. What did God promise to Abraham?
That his descendants would possess the land from the river of Egypt,
Okay.
Mesopotamia. I don't remember the north border.
Okay. Euphrates.
Euphrates. I'm sorry. Euphrates.
All right.
I don't remember the north border.
All right. So the river of Egypt is not the Nile River. There is now if you'll go back to our maps, let's see.
The river of Egypt until
The Euphrates.
Euphrates.
Yes, that's right. I'm trying to find where we find that.
56.
Right. Does that give a clear mark of the river Egypt there?
Yeah. If you look around.
Yes,
where
sure does.
Zen,
Sure does. That gives you the southern part. I was thinking there was one that gave one map. It seems like I looked at one map that gave clearly, here's the river of Egypt. Okay. If you'll go down, do y'all see the river Egypt? Okay. All right. So that's the southern part. Okay. And now the river, let me go back to another map. We'll have to go. All right. If you'll go back to page 42. See over by the Persian Gulf, and then the Tigris and Euphrates River, the Fertile Crescent right there, the red line, and follow that line. That line goes up the Euphrates River. So they're going to rule from Egypt, that river of Egypt, way over here, until then the river Euphrates. Okay? So when we look at Joshua 21 in verse 4, what was it, 21:34?
43.
43. Dyslexia just kicked in right there. Let me get on my right page because I've got some others I want to give to you. And that's going in the right direction. All right, so we have that passage. How much the land did he promise to them? I mean, how much did he give to them according to this passage? All. All right, now let's go to Judges 2 and verse 1. All right, and the angel of the Lord came into Gilgal to Bochum and said, I made you to go out of Egypt and brought you into the land which I swear unto your fathers, and said, I will never break my covenant with you. Right? So he gave them all the land. Now, in one more passage, 1 Kings chapter 4 and verse 21. 1 Kings 4 and verse 21. 1 Kings, not 2 Kings. 1 Kings 4 and verse 21. And Solomon reigned over all the kingdom from the river unto the land of the Philistines and unto the border of Egypt, and they brought the presents and served Solomon all the days of his life. So there is then, I have, 4 and verse 21, the Euphrates, the river. That first one, it says the river, that's talking about the river Euphrates. Okay, unto the border of the Philistines, that would be, and unto the border of Egypt, that's talking about, all right, the river of Egypt. So there are then the borders. Now, when they say they gave the borders, and God said that he gave them all that land, what does that mean? Gave it all to them. So nobody then today can say they didn't get the promised land. Bible says they got it fulfilled. The reason I say that is because those who believe in premillennialism will say they didn't get the promised land. But the Bible says they got all the land. All right, now we are going to go and talk about the judges just a minute. Let me turn you to page 82 in the book. I don't know how many of you have had the book of Judges, but one thing I would have you to remember are all the judges: Othniel, Ehud, Shamgar, Deborah, Barak, Gideon, Abimelech, Tola, Jair, Jephthah, Isban, Elon, Adon, Samson, Eli, and Samuel. Now, for our class, we're going to know those last three: Samson, Eli, and Samuel. What do you know about Samson?
Him and Delilah. What a thing.
He had a problem with women.
Yeah.
Okay.
Philistine.
He was a Nazarite,
All right.
and he never cut his hair
All
until
right.
Delilah got him. But he was very strong. He was very physically strong,
All right.
and he when they finally cut his hair and he lost all his strength,
Mm-hmm.
they poked his eyes out,
Mm-hmm.
and then he went and prayed to God and asked him to help him one more time. And he tore the temple down. There was like 3,000 people in the temple and on top of it and everything, and he killed them all.
All right. Very good.
He also is the one that tied the foxes' tails together and
Blew 'em on.
All right. He also
burned down their fields.
lifted the gates of the city
Mhm.
and toted them off.
Yes, they wanted Samson to entertain them. That's what they wanted in the
All right.
temple at the final thing.
Very good. So don't forget your stories about Samson from.
That was my daily Bible reading.
All right. Now tell me about Eli.
Eli was the high priest.
Okay.
He had two horrible sons.
Okay.
Mhm.
He was fat.
Okay.
I remember that.
He's
And
also
he basically raised Samuel.
all right.
By the
Now,
time Samuel was a small child.
yes,
His mom, Hannah,
Hannah. Okay.
Hannah
So we
had-
got Samuel.
Samuel.
Go ahead.
And
Tell me about Samuel while you're at it.
she promised God that if she would give him her son, that she would give him back to God.
Okay.
And she did. So when he was probably a big toddler or
When-
preschool age, what we think of.
When she weaned him,
Yeah, when she weaned him, probably 3 or 4. And
5 or
she-
6.
5 or 6, somewhere in that neighborhood. I think preschool is what I was thinking, kindergarten age. And takes him to Eli, and Eli raises him, and basically.
What does
raises
she
him.
do year by year?
Every year she goes to see him, she makes him a coat,
All right.
and Eli, time Samuel gets up some age on him, God finally speaks to him.
Okay.
And Eli thinks he's just dreaming,
All
but he
right.
finally realizes it's the Lord.
All
talking
right.
to him.
All right.
Samuel's kids are bad too.
Yes, they are. All right. So we need to understand who those last 3 judges are. Okay. And that helps us then go into the next phase. So let's go back to, and let's go back. Did I do Judges 3 and verse 3?
Mhm.
All right.
We
Let's,
did
let's-
2 and verse 1.
all right. Let's go to Judges 3 and verse 3 now. I thought I read this. Joshua Judges. Joshua Judges, and then 3. Okay. 3 and 3. Joshua Judges. All right. Namely, the 5 lords of the Philistines and all the Canaanites and the Sidonians and the Hivites, and dwelt in the Mount Lebanon and Baal Hermon and into the entering of Hamath. So here it is then, the 5 lords of the Philistines again. Now, we have to move on rapidly. On your map, page 78. one city that I want you to notice. If you find Ephraim, the country, the land of Ephraim right there, and we're going to come back to this in just a minute, but you see Shiloh. Do you know the importance of Shiloh?
That was where the tabernacle was.
All right. Why was the tabernacle there? That's because that was one of the circuits then that Samuel was riding. All right.
What's the relationship between that city and the scripture that says that
The scepter shall not part
from
till
Shiloh
Shiloh come. Till Shiloh
And
come.
Shiloh come means Jesus.
That's right. That's right.
Did you say this was one of the circuits that Samuel?
Yep. I believe that's right. All right, now on page 80. Okay, we didn't talk much about the
Saul got, yeah, that's another thing about Samuel. Saul got the witch of Endor to bring Samuel back.
yeah, that's right. All right, we are not to there yet.
I know, but you just wanted to know something.
Yeah.
It was my grandmother's name.
All right. It's not that it's not important, but the early judges and those type of things, understand that Ruth is taking place during the book of Judges. Okay. So let's go page 80 in our book. First paragraph, Judges 10 tells us a new way of oppression because Israelite became wicked. Now understand during the book of Judges, what they're doing is they're going into apostasy and they pray to God and God delivers them and sends them a judge. And then they go back into apostasy and they come out and back and out and back and out and back and out and back. Okay, so that's the way they're going. All right. Now notice, according to Judges chapter 10 and verse 6, they served these gods, the gods of the Syrian, the Zidonians, Moab, Ammon, and the Philistines.
Wait a minute.
Gods of Syria.
Is it Syria or Assyria?
This is Syria. Syria. Zidon. Zidon. Moab. Moab. Ammon. Ammon. And the Philistines. Ammon and Moab are from whom? That's right. All right. Now, these gods then demanded that they burn their children. There was human sacrifice. God, not all of them, but children of Israel got. We'll notice this also in the book of Ezekiel, that they were offering their children. And the kings of Israel were offering their children because of this. Okay. All right. Now, let me tell you something else about the judges. A lot of times on that chart right there, like Tola, you'll find in chapter 10, verses 1 and 2, that's all it has about him. We don't know anything more about him. So notice, I mean, we got 2 verses that deal with Tola, but we've got 3 chapters that deal with Samson, 4 chapters that deal with Eli, and 25 chapters that deal with Samuel. So some of the times they just mention the judge. He judged Israel. That's about all it says. Okay. So, all right, now go back to page 80. For 18 years, the Ammonites oppressed the Israelites living in Gilead. And sometimes the word Gilead is used to refer only to a country between Jabbok and Jarmuth Yarmuk River. In this story, it is used broader to make sense the land between the Dead Sea and the Yarmuk River. Reuben, Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh, who lived on the east side of the Jordan, involved in this oppression. The Ammonites, yes, even had to cross the Jordan to fight against the tribes of Judah, Benjamin, and Ephraim. Now drop down to
Excuse me.
the third paragraph from the bottom. Starts with Shamgar.
I said Judah, Benjamin, Ephraim.
Yeah. Shamgar. You see that where I am down at the bottom? Okay.
Yes.
Shamgar is the first Israelite named who fought the Philistines. We are merely told that he killed 600 Philistines with an ox goad. Then he mentions Samson, Eli, Samuel, Saul, and David. Now, what's the difference between Samson, Eli, Samuel, and Saul and David?
3 are judges, 2 are kings.
All right. All right. Samson was from which tribe? Dan. Good. All right. The village of Zoah. God gave him miraculous strength and began to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines. The story of Samson is unusual because he never led an army of any kind. All his conflicts with the Philistines were personal conflicts. Zorah. Yet he killed many of the enemy during his lifetime. And then it talks about how he gave a riddle, and then he killed 300 men, or 30 men. Let's see. Then he burned. That's not all that important as far as what we're. Then he took the gates of the city Gaza, and he put them and brought across to the hill from before Hebron. And so that's a very hilly country there. The Philistines learned his secret of the strength and through the guile of Delilah. They put out his eyes and forced him into slavery. They were mocking him in the house of their god Dagon in Gaza, when God allowed him to have one last measure of his strength. And they bowed himself upon the pillars of the temple and killed more in his death than he did in the rest of his life. Judges chapter 17 and verse 6 and 21:25 says, "And every man did that which was right in his own eyes."
Repeat the scriptures.
Judges 17:6 and 21:25. It is no wonder God was allowing his people to be oppressed at this time. In addition to the idolatrous worship mentioned earlier, we learned from 1 Samuel chapter 2 that the priests of God were serving at the tabernacle at Shiloh were some of the most wicked men in the land. Okay. All right. The Philistines gathered in Ebenezer to fight the Israelites soon after Samson's last victory, and God was not with his people. Israel was thoroughly defeated, and the Ark of the Covenant was stolen. A fascinating story follows that shows how that God can take care of events of the ark even though it is in the hands of an enemy. The Philistines took first the ark to Ashdod, then to Gath, on to Ekron, and a plague struck each of these places. Finally, the Philistines sent the ark back to Beth-shemesh in Judah. They tied, and it's interesting what they did. This is the last known recording of the carrying of the Ark of the Covenant before David brought the Ark of the Covenant into Jerusalem. And how did David bring the Ark of the Covenant into Jerusalem?
He had it on an ox cart.
All right. And there was somebody that put forth his hand to steady it when they stumbled, and his name is Uzzah. That's correct. And what did God do to him?
Struck him dead.
Struck him dead. Why did he strike him dead?
Because they were supposed to carry, no one was allowed to touch it. And they were only supposed to carry it on the rods, and only certain ones were supposed to carry it.
And you know what Uzzah's occupation was? I don't know if he was from the proper portion of the Levites to be carrying that, but he was a Levite. So he could have, that's right, because whose job was it? We've already talked about this. Whose job was it to instruct the people on the law of God? All right. So he should have known better. That's right. David should have known
So
better.
he may have been from the tribe of Korah. We don't know.
Could have been, but we don't know. But he was not supposed
The
to.
only one that ever saw the ark was the high priest.
That's right. And so it must not have been uncovered. It must have been uncovered at this time because you never.
That's terrible.
So
Now, what was that last blank? The people there sent it on to,
Kirjath Jearim, Kirjathjearim. Okay, you can look up these passages that it's got there and you can get them. So, all right, the period of the judges is described as a time when there was no central government and every man did that which is right in his own eyes. Okay, there was rivalry between the tribes. Ephraim felt insulted if they were not called to each battle, and the men of Benjamin refused to punish some wicked men for a crime they committed, and the other tribes were destroying the whole tribe of Benjamin in revenge. Okay. All right. So that's got us a feeling of what it was during the time of Judges. So we're going to come then to the next lesson 22, and I told you about those judges. That's a good chart you got there, by the way. And if I was again teaching the book of Judges, you'd see that chart and you'd have to fill out that chart, and that'd be good test stuff too, to know those things. Okay, that gives you the. All right, now Samuel, page 83. Was a good man. His mother vowed to dedicate him to God even before his birth, and he grew up around the tabernacle at Shiloh, working closely with Eli the priest. He became the leader of Israel through the disastrous battle with that's not right. I don't.
Samuel 4:1.
Yeah. That should be the Philistines, I think.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
They went out to battle against the Philistines to battle, pitched beside Ebenezer, and
Yeah.
the Philistines pitched
So,
in Aphek.
all right. That's the hands of the Philistines. All right. Now, next paragraph down underneath that, the people listened to Samuel's plea to put away their idols and gathered at Mizpah to fast and to pray for forgiveness. The Philistines heard that they were assembled and brought an army to attack. And God with his people this time, however, began at Mizpah, and Israel pursued the Philistines to Bethkar. Bethkar. That doesn't, I may have misspelled that word. Let me look and see. Bethkar. Sure is. Yep, Bethkar.
But they said the battle began at Mizpah, right?
Yeah. All right, now in the next paragraph, this is where I wanted. The next few years was therefore peaceful. Israel even regained the cities of Shephelah that the Philistines had taken. Samuel was able to make a peaceful circuit each year from Bethel to Gilgal to Mizpah and back home to Ramah. Now we need to find those on our map. And if you'll go to page
Bethel,
8,
Gilgal, and
86.
Mizpah, and then give them some fast.
Well, I'm gonna give them to you again if you'll just,
Well, you don't usually do
on your map on page 86, I want you to find Mizpah, Ramah, what were they? Bethel,
that. Bethel, Rim, and
do you see them on the map?
Gilgal.
Do you see them on the map? Okay. Look at Jerusalem. You find Jerusalem. I told you how to find Jerusalem all the time. All right. Look north then. And you find Ramah. Then you find Bethel. Over towards the west, you'll find Mizpah.
I don't see Gilgal.
It's over by the river Jordan.
I got it.
So that was his circuit rider. He was a circuit rider. Okay, we're going to stop right there for this evening and take up then with the last of Saul getting into the last of Samuel and getting into the first king. And we need to talk about the kings, and then we're going to talk about the divided kingdom. And so we'll take about those next time. All right. Thank you very much. Stop.